Will workplace reforms lead to economic growth or destruction? Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. Let's have a look at this article from Yahoo Finance. The laws that could kill pay rises, the Omnibus Bill explained. Now, they're looking at some workplace reforms here in Australia, which frankly I would argue are sorely needed. Now, sure, we've discussed many times the lack of wage growth in this country, but there are a few reasons for that. And you've got to understand, when the government sets a minimum wage, it's kind of like it's really an unfair term. The minimum wage, that's GDP growth rate, we don't look at that. The minimum wage, right now, let me know if you think what it is. Let us know what the absolute minimum wage is. And I'll have a shot of coffee. If you guess $0, then you're right. That is the minimum wage someone has to pay you. You're not entitled to a job. No one is entitled to employ you. You're not entitled to work. I remember when, back at university, there was my roommate's girlfriend. She was up over at the place, and my father, who was a building designer and a builder, he was having a look at her final design drawings. Rachel and I were tutoring in a subject where we got the architecture students to actually attempt to document a project that they've worked on, a design they've worked on, looking at the different building code standards to try and get something actually buildable. And it was interesting to see. So kind of to expose them to the reality of the profession and to test the practicality of some of their design concepts. And you'd find some of the students who were like the superstars, getting all the HDs in designs. What they were dreaming wasn't even a reality. It was quite interesting. And there was this roommate's girlfriend. She showed her drawings to my father, and he'd worked for years as a builder and a building designer. And all he said to her was, maybe you should consider another profession. Now, she was complaining that she couldn't get a job. I wasn't surprised she couldn't get a job. Just the quality of her work wasn't there. The capabilities wasn't there. She felt like the university shouldn't offer places if there weren't jobs for it. I think I was quite well behaved. Oh no, maybe I did. Maybe I blurted something out there. But still, just that way of thinking, that desire for paternalism from other people to take care of you. Is that normal? Is that normal? I see that as well, regressive and childish. Someone that expects others to take care of them like that. I see it's I guess a responsibility of people to take care of your family and provide for them. But you don't want the state to take care of you. You don't want them to have quota signed numbers for architecture positions in a competitive sector. Do you? So let's look at this. Because this is the problem here. Our wages are quite high in Australia compared to overseas. That, with the iron law of wages, it drives up the cost of things. So you'll have businesses that are incentivized to either automate or offshore. I've seen it in my own industry. And I'd be having coffee with the engineer saying, yep, we've got an office here. Oh, and we have one in the Philippines. We've got 40 draftees working for us, a fraction of the cost. So, today, on February the 5th, marks the final day to get submissions in for one of the most controversial reforms to Australian workplace law. Introduced by the Morrison government to create jobs and help businesses recover after COVID-19, the Industrial Relations Reform would create a definition of casual work, let casuals convert to permanent workers after 12 months, and fast-track enterprise agreements that don't meet minimum conditions. Now, this is where I was talking about some more innovative ideas. I would even go more drastic than this and have special economic zones around the country where we really test these ideas. But the government has been slammed by groups that argue the proposals will actually leave workers worse off and stifle wage increases. We're not going to see wage increases. We need to get people working. We need to get people off welfare. We need to actually have innovation and creativity in our economy. sitting on your ass not doing anything, that your skills will atrophy. Your capabilities will rust. The reform package was tabled to Parliament in December last year and has been referred to the Education and Employment Legislation Committee for inquiry. Because there are multiple components, it is more often referred to as the Omnibus Bill. Its full name is the Fair Work Amendments Supporting Australian Jobs and Economic Recovery Bill 2020. With the submission deadline closing today, here's an outline of what the reforms propose, what it aims to achieve, and why it's contested and by whom. So, industrial relation reforms, what is the bill? While the draft legislation makes a number of proposals, 5 key measures in particular have been in the spotlight, defining what a casual employee is. In many ways, employment is changing. Being able to have a full-time job at a single business for your whole life, it's an outmoded concept to a lot of people. I don't think any people will even encounter that. I would argue it's probably better to train the next generation with entrepreneurial skills, to be self-reliant, to not expect others to take care of them or to provide for them. Is that too harsh for the Australian culture these days? What happened to our, pioneering spirit? It's kind of, gone by the wayside, hasn't it? The reform would define what a casual worker is in legislation. This would be someone who accepts work where there is no firm advance commitment to continuing and indefinite work. Casual workers will also be given the right to convert into a permanent employee if they want to. After 12 months, bosses will have to assess whether their casual workers have had regular shifts, and if so, offer them part-time or full-time work. Here's the thing. Casuals get paid more. That's why. You get paid more. Because think about it. What would you rather? If you were working for someone, would you rather get paid more and not have holiday or any of that other rubbish, which is essentially your money that you're trusting your employer to hold aside for you because you're incapable of saving? Or would you rather have access to more money and reap the benefit of that? Because it's an illusion. Permanency in an employment is an illusion, guys. It's a fantasy. A month you're gone. 4 weeks, what's that? But we're living in a world where some people don't even have an emergency fund now. How do we change that? How do we change the culture? How do we start at school? I would love to see a drive for, okay, you want Netflix? Make yourself a money machine that provides you $10 a month passive income and use that to pay for your Netflix. That should be the culture that we're looking at. How can you invest money to generate free money or easy money or low effort money and then use that to splurge? And then build up, get the snowball effect, the opposite of the wealth effect, of the debt snowball, the wealth snowball, the passive income snowball. It's never really discussed. It's only ever just housing, more bloody housing in Australia. Everyone become a landlord, a slumlord. Significantly, the bill also prevents what's called double dipping. That is, if a court determines a casual worker has been misclassified and is actually permanent, they'll have their subsequent leave entitlements offset by the casual loading they've already been paid. This means employers don't have to pay entitlements to the same worker twice. Yet that's the point. Some people may want to be casual. 2, greater worker flexibility. Workplace flexibility, isn't that the point of being casual, having flexibility? COVID-19 has triggered much greater workplace flexibility, and the bill looks to extend some of these arrangements, including flexibility around what's considered part-time work. Proposed provisions would allow bosses and part-time workers who already work at least 16 hours to agree on extra hours of work at ordinary rates of pay. Nothing seems wrong with any of this yet. Enterprise agreements get fast-tracked. These proposals have been particularly contentious and relate to enterprise bargaining agreements or EBAs. The reforms would fast-track non-union EBAs and change a number of things, such as the Better Off Overall test or BOOT is applied, including only taking into account types of patterns of work that staff are currently engaging in, not taking into account hypotheticals. Regarding overall benefits, including non-monetary benefits, and giving weight to the views of the parties actually affected by the EBA. There are some other changes too, like giving the Fair Work Commission power to approve EBAs that don't pass the boot for a period of 2 years, and a provision that would kill off zombie agreements from 1st of July 2022. What I would like to see is the removal of fringe benefit tax and allow employers to give perks and bonuses to staff. Bigger fines and jail times for underpayment. The reforms crack down harder on wage theft. Companies would cop penalties of up to $99,990 for contraventions, up from $66,000, and individuals would cop $90,000, up from $13,000. Those who have been found dishonestly underpaying staff would also face 4 years jail time, as well as $1 million penalties. So I know this isn't going to, you'd assume that it wouldn't account for, it wouldn't unfairly punish people who've made an honest mistake and rectify it. You'd hope this would be systematic underpayment, like you're hearing, from all of the 7-Elevens or things like that. So greenfield agreements will be lengthened. A greenfield agreement is one that is made directly between the employer and the employee group, like unions. The reforms would extend agreements covering the construction phase of new major projects, such as mining ventures, from 4 to 8 years, and would have to give a pay rise at least once a year. That'd be nice, getting a pay rise once a year, wouldn't it? How many small businesses are able to increase their fees once a year? The Morrison government has proposed this bill as part of a plan to support job recovery and help keep businesses afloat during the COVID-19 crisis, but it also tackles some of Australia's long-running problems in the industrial relations system. When the bill was first tabled, Attorney General and Minister for Industrial Relations Christian Porter said the proposals were not radical or driven by ideology. Regrowing jobs, especially in some of our hardest hit industries such as the retail and hospitality sectors, is an enormous challenge that our IR reforms will help us to meet, he said. He also anticipated fierce opposition and roadblocks to passing legislation. The danger is that if those inside and outside Parliament revert to their traditional ideological corners, these critical reforms could be delayed or even blocked, leaving businesses without crucial support and workers without an opportunity to get back into jobs. Well, you know what will happen. Businesses will close down, they'll find ways to automate, and they'll look at every single way they could reduce their staff. I was talking to a viewer the other day. He called up to have a chat. He's in the scanning game, point cloud scanning game. The technology they have is very, high speed and quite cost effective. He gave me an example. A job that was going to be done over in Indonesia. They'd assigned 9 months and a whole team to do this job. Their team with their tech here in Australia, 1 day. They're looking at applying it for stock take, going up and down, warehouses, other facilities. You don't need many staff to do that, do you? This is the problem. However, Labour, employee groups, unions, and think tanks alike have criticized various aspects of the Omnibus Bill, stating that it actually reduces workers' rights. We're in a recession, the first one in 28 years. It has to be give and take. Businesses are struggling. They've been forced to shut down. There's some businesses, I bet you there's some idiot managers that have kept their business, or owners have kept their businesses going, just so their staff could get the JobKeeper, and not realizing that, or maybe not caring that they're racking up all of these other costs, these superannuation costs, all of these other entitlements, and then the business is going to fall over once it's pulled out, and then Fair Work will go on, and they'll probably lose their home. So they may have been doing the good thing. They may have tried to be nice, and it may come back and bite them. This is why when you start a business, you find people tend to get hardened eventually. So, there'll be people who hear the things I say and the positions I say, and their feelings will get hurt, and they'll get angry, and they'll go, oh, you're so mean, you're just a bastard boss, you're so biased. It's people who really haven't been hardened in that position and don't have that real world experience. It happens to all of us. You all start real nice. A number of voices have also raised concerns about the bill's impact on wage growth. Wage growth isn't going to happen. We're in a recession. You're lucky to have a job, let alone wage growth. It's not, wages aren't going to grow in Australia. They're probably too high. You know, that's what it is. And wages have to be so high because everything's so bloody inflated. And the problem with that is we're in a global economy now. So we're competing with people overseas. So you can hire someone in the Philippines, an architecture graduate, a registered architect over there, for a fraction of what it would cost here. And they could buy a house quite comfortably, quite a lovely house, for the same money. You look at what they... This is why the fruit pickers will come over here. They'll go fruit pick for crap money. They don't care. They'll do it. They'll go back home. Okay, boom, we got a new extension, honey. Or boom, that's paying for school for the year for our kids. You've got to realize the iron law of wages. Wages is a big component of a lot of businesses and it drives up costs. So there becomes this perverse situation where you find some businesses will do everything they can to circumvent these laws. And then workers get screwed. Or people just can't find work because they're not worth the minimum wage. Or they are worth, well, they're not worth the artificial minimum wage set by the government. So no one will hire them for that money. It's hardest on the youngest people when they're trying to get your foot in the door. The first job is always the hardest to get because you've got no experience. Some people don't want to spend all that money getting you experience. In our game, in architecture, being a student enrolled in a course, you could, back in the day, even if you were over 21, you'd work for like $7 an hour, $6 an hour as you were started. This was to help you get a foot in the door to actually earn money while you were working, but an appreciation that you couldn't really add that much value. So there'd be firms that would hire, 8 students every year and just churn them through. Now they hire 1 or 2. So remove the boot test, and making it easier for non-union EBAs to be fast-tracked would actually push down wages, one economist argued. Well, the problem is unions, they're a cartel, and they actually decrease wages outside of their group. They favor their own group. And the majority members of unions these days in most Western countries are middle-aged women. So, yeah. In a report, Alison Pennington, a senior economist for think tank the Australia Institute Centre for Future Work, said that the reforms would enhance the top-down power of employers to implement their own agreements. Pennington argues 3 things: that non-union agreements have consistently delivered lower wage rises than union agreements, that many non-union EBAs have delivered no wage rises at all, and non-union EBAs lock in lower wages for longer. We can't even, why are we talking about wage rises, guys? We want to get people working, okay? Wage rise comes after you work. You want to be a higher performer. Now, you've got to I'm coming at this from a professional's perspective. Okay, when I worked in private businesses, back when I was working as a student, no one got paid the award. We always paid more than the award. All of us did. Significantly more. Because there was supply and demand. And you could argue for it. You could go for a job and ask for higher pay. We paid our staff more. We'd start them off on the award, then we'd pay them due to their capabilities. That's why you'd often have 2 people, similar roles, but paid differently. Because some were working a lot harder than others. It's funny that. So that's why my experience with these is limited to my days at, Woolworths as a checkout chick, service cashier. And I was always frustrated that the older workers who were doing the exact same work were paid more simply due to age. Now I understand. But I mean, that was an unskilled job. You'd learn it in a week. The Omnibus Bill's chances signal a clear path to reducing wages through non-union EAs, she said. I remember I met a lawyer that worked with the unions. It was quite funny. She was saying, oh, they're all such nice blokes and they're all concerned with safety and all of these things. I'm going, well, yeah, I mean, that's fine. They should be. But, they'll use militant means to get unfair deals for their members. Look at what Borrell's doing down in Victoria. Look at some of the things that's happening down there in the construction. She wouldn't hear any of it. RMIT University professor and employment law expert Anthony Forsyth highlighted the fact that the reforms give Fair WFC power to approve agreements that don't meet the boot. Well, maybe the boot needs to change, guys. This is a major breach in the protections given to employees against wage cuts and other reductions in conditions. It will drive down wages, he told Yahoo Finance. One of the reasons why wage growth has been suppressed is because enterprise bargaining has slowed right down, he added. Really? You reckon that's the reason why? The number of workers covered by EBAs in the private sector has dropped from 19% in 2013 to just 11.7% in September 2020. Enterprise agreements are one of the main ways to secure above-award wages for workers. No, they're not. Working harder is. Isn't that the way to do it? To improving your skill base and getting better education and working your way up in an organization. Shouldn't that be the message? I mean, this is a very one-sided article, isn't it? Or am I wrong, guys? Why is there never any even mention of people taking steps to improve their own skill base to earn more? Is that not even considered anymore? Do people only ever just work in one job? And do they think they only work in one job? Don't people look around for better work? Or, better conditions? Don't they say, I've worked hard? I mean, I'm coming at this at the perspective of a small business. If someone works hard, you want to keep them, you want to reward them. So there's competition there. If you don't, you're going to lose them. Are these people that don't care? We need measures that will kickstart bargaining. The bill might lead to more agreements being made, but they will be in employers' favour, because the provisions in the bill remove many of the rights employees to access information before voting on an agreement, and limit the opportunity for union involvement. The bill aims to make the agreement-making process quicker and easier for businesses, not boost workers' wages. We need to actually keep jobs, guys. First recession in 28 years. The economy is in trouble. The only reason we're not tanking is because the government is just bleeding money left, right, and center to everyone. I mean, are there people... There would be, wouldn't there? There'd be people that have never gotten a pay rise except someone else negotiating it for them. So what else is being said about the bill? Okay, here we go. Commenting on the bill overall, Forsyth said it didn't carry a lot of good news for workers. For one, it gives employers greater power to determine who's casual and who isn't, and doesn't really offer workers a strong dispute resolution process if the employer refuses to convert the worker to permanent. Well, I mean, it's just a fallacy, guys. Okay, you're permanent, whoop-de-doo. That means your business, you get holiday entitlements. That means you get a pay cut. They hold that aside for you. Oh no, the business has gone under. Oh, they spent all your holiday money. They've got nothing. You're screwed. This is echoed by the Australian Council of Trade Union Secretary Sally McManus, who tweeted that the bill entrenches casual work. The Morrison government is proposing to entrench casual work and take rights off casuals. I mean, you look at her. I looked at her LinkedIn. She's just been union born and bred all the way through. Employers can label you casual even if your job is not. You lose rights to leave, and it's retrospective. If your employer doesn't offer you a permanent job, you can't challenge. Then get another job. If they're treating you, if you want a permanent job, you ask for a permanent job, and they don't care enough to give you one, you need to go somewhere else. They don't care about you. But Florian, I'm not important enough to warrant that consideration. Well, whose problem is that? Am I being too harsh here, guys? Tell me if I'm being too harsh here. McManus has also likened the reforms to work choices, an unpopular number of amendments to labour law made during the Howard era in 2005. Work choices allowed employers to cut wages, and this proposal will do that as well, she said. When work choices was introduced, employers rushed out to cut wages. The same will happen if this law passes. Some workers are still stuck with work choices pay cuts some 13 years later. Well, Do people not have agency, guys? Do they not have agency? Is this the problem? Have we lost our agency? Or is that just the narrative that's being pushed by these people that are representing the workers? I mean, they've got their own personal bias to present it in such a way that they are the only ones that can represent them. The people do not have agency themselves because their livelihood is dependent on it. It's a business like no other. They got to represent this body underneath them, and they draw money from them. So it's on their own vested interest. It's where they draw their political power. It's where they draw their status in society. So who's in favour of the bill? Other than the Morrison government, which is introducing the bill, business councils, industry groups and workplace relations specialists, which work with businesses, are in favour of the reforms to varying degrees. Business Council of Australia CEO Jennifer Westacott has hailed the reforms as practical and workable, and puts the ambition back in agreement making. She believes the EBAs will again become a genuine alternative to awards and will help achieve higher wages, better productivity and jobs growth. Westacott also believes the flexible part-time arrangements will give workers more choice, increased take-home pay, address underemployment and incentivize workers to give their part-time staff more work. Yes, I bet you she's right. This sounds right. Because you got the union fantasy world there where they think everyone lives like in the 50s and wants a 40-hour week. People want flexibility. They may want a few more hours here or there. The 8-year Greenfields Agreement will also inject more certainty into pay and conditions, she added. Ines Willox, CEO of the Australian Industry Group, said the bill was balanced, fair and removed roadblocks to productivity. The bill's casual employment provisions will address widespread current uncertainty and help casuals regain jobs. The changes to EBAs will also increase productivity and wage growth, he said. Managing Director Ed Mullett of EmploySure, a workplace and employment relations specialist firm, said the prevention of double-dipping claims will help business cash flow. Business owners who have been trying to save money any way they can as a result of the pandemic, with initiatives like JobKeeper coming to an end in coming months, a change like this, if executed correctly, would be the kickstart employers need to start the new year on the front foot. So what's next? They're closed, and according to the Parliament of Australia website, a series of public hearings will be held in Townsville on the 8th of February and Adelaide on the 10th of February. Why only Townsville and Adelaide? What about, no offence, but some decent-sized cities? The Education and Employment Legislation Committee will then report on the inquiry. Why Townsville and Adelaide? I mean, come on. Don't get me wrong. I like Townsville and I like Adelaide, but come on. Seriously. They're not big cities. At least Brisbane, we're even a little bit bigger. But come on, what about Melbourne and Sydney? So, they'll report on it on the 12th of March. I mean, honestly, I would say one way to increase employment is to make it easier to terminate people. You may think that's counterintuitive, but when you take someone on, you're taking a bit of a risk. And I know people will say you've got the probationary period, but technically that doesn't actually exist. You need to have 2 contracts. You negotiate one contract just for the probationary period, then you have to negotiate an entirely new contract going on from there. Maybe we had some actual allowances for a probationary period in our workplace relations and laws. I mean, it's a start. We need to do something. Our unemployment rate is 6.6%. We're in our first recession in 28 years, and work is being offshored. Left, right, and centre. There's very little incentive for people to start a business in this country. And if they do, they find every single way they can to reduce the burden of having staff. I mean, what a nightmare it would be to deal with these union people. Have you gone through any of these workplace agreements, all the different things and loopholes and stuff? Oh, it's frustrating. That's why it creates incentives to hire contractors, put all the burden onto them. So what do you think, everyone? Are you happy with these reforms? Is it true, like the lefties are all painting it, that these poor workers have no agency? Is it an outdated concept to think that people should improve themselves and get better skills if they want to earn more? Or is it just not the way it goes anymore, guys? Am I outdated? I mean, I'm getting old. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Do you think the minimum wage should be as high as it is? And what about all those people that can't even perform at that level? Or those people that can't get the experience to even get a foot in the door because they're priced out of the market? Let me know your thoughts, opinions, and suggestions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. You can also use the SelfWealth link down below, get 5 free share trades, and give me 5 free share trades as well. Hey, that's $10 a time. All adds up. Take care, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.